My mother received a bachelor's degree in math. My father received a master's degree in math and became a master math teacher as a high school teacher. And he was also a football coach, and I'm happy to say in the Texas High School Coaches Hall of Fame. But so I have a lot of mathematicians around, and I'm married to a mechanical engineer. And that's the reason that I think I understand the necessity for us as a country to inspire the next generation of mathematicians and scientists and technologists and engineers. We're going to need them to create the new products and services that will advance this country and move this country forward.
There's been much made because we have a black president now, we have a black head of the RNC, and Chairman Steele was talking about reaching out to the black community to get more black voters. And it's been an issue for me personally, something that I feel is really important because I feel like the conservative values are really important to our country and to all communities. And I was wondering, what drew you to the Republican Party?
Well, it's interesting. I am maybe the first African American to hold a statewide executive branch position. But I'm only the second Williams to be elected as a Republican. My mother was an elected official, and she was elected to the Midland County Hospital District back in the early 80s. I come from a socially conservative family. Now, it would not be fair to say that my parents in the early part of my life were very political, because they were not. They were very, very conservative. And I also come from a city that is known for its conservatism, Midland, Texas. A country that's given us 2 presidents, a first lady, and 4 railroad commissioners. But I come to it because I as an adult, had to make a decision. What philosophy is the philosophy that's going to expand and broaden freedom, that's going to encourage individual liberty, individual responsibility, and provides the best opportunity for the uplift of the black community? And to me, that's conservatism as opposed to liberalism when you look at, obviously, the philosophical basis of both parties.
Do you think that, I've kind of wondered, now that we've had a black president, once that threshold has been, overcome, that we'll have more African American people come out of the closet, as it were, as conservatives. Are you?
Well, just look in this election cycle. In this election cycle, it's my understanding about 16 black Americans that are running as Republicans for federal offices. That is unheard of in the past. Now, whether all of them win, probably not. But all Anglos who run don't win either.
Right.
But I think you are seeing something that's very, very different. But it's going to be extremely important for us as conservatives to provide solutions to the real problems that real people have. And I think we can do that. And that's what the black community is looking for. Black community is as sophisticated as any other community. They're not simply going to vote for us because we're black. They're going to vote for us because we're right.
What kind of do you think that the messaging is wrong, or do you think that the public perception of being a Republican or a conservative is wrong, and that's why
in the black community?
In the black community?
Well, I think we've got to do a couple of things. First of all, the message, the principles are correct. The principles of freedom and responsibility, getting married, staying married, learning something new every day. Those principles are the right principles. But what we have to do is to make sure, if we're talking to a community, we have to go and have a conversation with them every day. We can't just simply have that conversation in the 90 days in advance of an election. We also have to make sure that we understand that the black community has a tradition of looking at many issues through a prism of race. So when we see things that we know are wrong, when we see true racism, when we see true bigotry, as conservatives, the people who understand the notion of individual liberty and individual freedom, we have to be the people to stand up and say no.
Right.
Because the community is going to demand that from us. So we've got to stay the course on our principles. We have to be there every day. And when we see things that are wrong, we have to say that they're wrong. And then we have to spend as much time and devote as much energy to the challenges that you see in the black community in terms of education, job creation in the urban areas, as we do for, let's say, healthcare or energy production, other issues that we feel a whole lot more comfortable with.
Amen. Okay. I'm glad we talked about that. I mean, it's not something that I think on the conservative and the Republican side, there's this kind of discomfort because we want to look at, well, we're all the same. We want to be viewed as individuals, not as a color, not as a gender or whatever. But the fact is, we are a color and we are a gender, and people do relate in certain ways because of that, and I think it needs to be acknowledged.
But listen, there is a growing segment and element in the black community that sees that the same way that you do. We are indeed individuals, and they want to be addressed in that way. But what we have to do as a party is to recognize that we have to have this conversation with them each and every day. And it may not be, we may not get the response that we want the first time.
Right.
Which means you go back.
Right.
It's like any kind of marketing.
Right.
You go back and you have that conversation. We also have to do something else. We are so eager as conservatives and Republicans to tell folks about the rightness of our position.
Right.
And sometimes what we really ought to do is just to sit down, be quiet, and listen.
Yeah.
Listen to that new community that we're trying to reach out to. Listen to how they define what they see to be their problems and their challenges.
Right.
And listen to them.
Right. I also feel like that we've conceded too much.
Oh yeah, we do way too much.
Way too much. Like we're never going to get that vote, or we're never, and so and I think it's a big mistake.
It is a mistake. You know, what happens so often, particularly in political races, consultants tell candidates, you know, you'll only get a certain percentage of the black vote, so you spend your time somewhere else.
Right.
We can win that vote, and I think ultimately we will. I think what's going to happen, there will be a high-level black Republican elected to a gubernatorial position or senatorial position, and that person will be a game changer.
Yeah.
And the floodgates will open once that happens.
That's what I'm hoping for. I'm serious, people. You need to be watching Michael Williams. He's going to be great. Okay, one last question. So, just for all the people listening who have no idea what a Texas Railroad Commissioner does, can you explain to them?
We are the state's energy agency, and we think of ourselves as the premier energy agency in the country, bar none.
Yeah.
We regulate the Texas oil, natural gas, coal, uranium industry. We have the largest pipeline system in America, 290,000 miles of pipe. We regulate the natural gas utilities that provide heat to our residents' homes. So we also have the fossil fuel directed alternative fuels, propane, LNG, CNG. We're the energy agency.
All right, well there you have it. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I look forward